Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Progress Texas Happy Hour. Diana, Ed, Wesley, as always, so grateful for y'all to be here, to kind of talk us through what's been going on in Texas. But today's a really, really important day. Today is Employee Appreciation Day. And since Diana, Wesley, and myself are the employees of one Ed Espinosa, Ed, why don't you go around and kind of say what you appreciate about each of us?
I'm sorry, Sophic, you cut out. What did you say?
What do you appreciate about us? Why are we the most amazing staff you've ever worked with?
Well, that is, you're really teeing that one up big time. So this is what I appreciate about you guys is that you are into the work. You live the values. You don't just come to work and check in and check out. Like, this is what you do day in and day out. Like, you believe in this stuff. Like, all of you are involved in things outside of your work. I appreciate that the new Leaders Council work that you do, Diana. Sophic, I know you do NLC and lots of other things. I feel like you have enough things to share around, right? Wesley, I know that you're really passionate about a number of issues that you work on. And I think that together that really makes for a healthy team. But specifically, what I like about each of you guys, remember when Obama had one of the guys from Key and Peele, and he was like his, what was he like? His
anger translator.
Wesley is like my assertive translator when it comes to like accountability in politics. Like, Wesley's the guy who will like kick it up a notch. He'd be like, no, I think we can take it a little farther here. And then like Diana is like the one who brings so much heart and compassion to things. All of you have heart and compassion, but Diana's got a little bit more. And I think that's really important. And then Sophic, you have just such a great spirit, and you can teach a lot of things. You can't teach spirit, and I think that's all together. This is it's a good team. It's a good team that we have here. So, but enough about you guys. What do you guys think about me?
I feel so touched, Ed.
Yeah.
No, really, I work for you all. Is really what this all comes down to. You might be the employees, but like ultimately a good boss, I think, accounts to his people. So
I agree. And actually, I was talking about this we were interviewing a potential digital intern yesterday, and she asked, what is great about working at Progress Texas? And what was really easy to say is that before the pandemic even officially started, you sent us home because you were like, you know what, this COVID thing might be here for 2 weeks. I don't want you to be around for it. Go home and stay safe. And a year later, we're still here.
2 weeks. I didn't know what a pandemic was. I've never been through a pandemic before. We're going home for 2 weeks. We're gonna log on to this thing called Boom, and we're gonna work from home.
For those watching, before we really dive in, if you love our live happy hours, you're gonna love what comes next. Right now, through Amplify Austin, we're trying to raise $5,000 to launch our new Progress Texas podcast. Donate $5 or more, and we'll send you a Progress Texas sticker pack. In addition, any donation you make will be matched 100%. Donate today. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. Give me 1 sec. And as we move from that, there's someone who is our employee right now. His name is Governor Greg Abbott. He's been in the news. And let me say, I can't say anything nice about him on Employee Appreciation Day. This is going to be our Employee Disappreciation Hour or half hour for Greg Abbott. Wesley, what did he do this week?
So this week, Greg Abbott made an announcement saying that he is going to fully reopen Texas 100%, and he is ending the mask mandate in our state. So there's no longer a statewide mask mandate requiring folks who are out in public to wear masks. And I think you make a really good point, Sophic, that Greg Abbott is our employee. And I don't know about y'all, but if I had an employee who was trying to kill me, I'd probably fire them. So I think it's time to fire Greg Abbott.
I think it's funny how a lot of leadership in Texas, I mean, I feel like, last week we were talking about Ted Cruz going off to Cancun, and it's like a lot of this Republican leadership, GOP leadership is in competition with, but let me do my job even more terribly this week. And it's hard to keep up.
My favorite tweet that I saw this week was from Harold Cook, who he said, the Ted Cruz thing was like 5 dumb Republicans ago. That's how long ago that was.
It's almost like you can't make it up that they're always this bad, always trying to like mess things up. It's like they're doing it on purpose.
Like a constant state of hold my beer.
Yeah. Oh wait, you left for Cancun? Hold my beer. I'm ending a mask mandate right now, Teddy. Teddy boy, don't mess with me.
But even Abbott, it's like he's in a constant state of hold my beer with himself, because this entire pandemic, I mean, every step of crisis, he's watched his response. So like in the very beginning, he waited too long to close the state, and then he didn't even call like what was happening a stay-at-home order. And on top of that, he tried to reopen too soon. He didn't let people allow mask mandates within their different counties. So like Judge Lena Hidalgo tried to issue a mask mandate for Harris County, and he stopped her from doing that. It's just like every single step of this pandemic, he's gone against what was obvious and what health experts were advising, and instead he's put every Texan more at risk of potentially getting sick. So yeah, I think it's a state of hold my beer, but it's also just he's one-upping himself every single time.
The COVID infection rate on Wednesday, the day he did, was it Wednesday or Tuesday that he lifted the mask mandate? Whatever day it was.
I think it was on Tuesday.
Was nearly identical to the day he instituted the mask mandate in July. Like, oh, it's better now. It's actually exactly the same and going up.
I mean, I know trying to conserve things, you know. He's a conservative.
Right. And then Diana, I know I think we all talked about that this week, about how he repealed the mask mandate, and then the next day said Biden is letting in immigrants with COVID, and it's going to get worse in Texas. Like, what? Who's stupid here? Like, are you stupid, or do you think we're stupid? Like, who's the stupid here?
Yeah, it's such a whiplash. I feel like already this week, you know, we're coming up on a lot of anniversaries of last year, where we were last year, where this pandemic was starting. And it was also around this time that people were trying to convince folks to doctors to convincing the population in Texas to wear masks. And I feel like we already went through this of trying to convince folks to, you know, follow basic public safety measures. Now we're going to do this all over again. Yeah. Is, you know, pushing through this importance of wearing masks. Like, it's just it's too much.
And so you're right, Diana. Sorry.
We're getting a question from Facebook from Pamela Davison. Does Texas have a recall process for a governor or a senator, and especially in light of their terrible performance trying to keep us safe?
Unfortunately, we do not. We do for local elections in some localities, but at the state level, we are stuck with it. We are stuck in a state of buyer's remorse. Even though many of us did not buy, we still have to suffer with the purchase. We just have to hope to do better next time and keep fighting along the way.
Which is why organizing for 2022 and all of the upcoming elections is so important. So we cannot forget about this, and we cannot forget what happened. I think this anger that you're feeling right now, we need to turn that into action. And I think that's something that we talk about every time. And I know it's not something people want to hear. They don't want to hear like, oh, there's not an immediate solution. But I mean, the solution is to get rid of this leadership and to vote better people into office at the end of the day.
Who are going to be those better people in a year?
Lena Hidalgo, I'm just going to say it.
I don't know. I'm really excited to see who runs, though.
Yeah.
Yesterday, Wesley, you mentioned you were kind of upset with pundits, and I just wanted to explore why that was, because I think it makes a really good point about why organizing is so important.
What can you remind me what I had said?
It was yesterday, man. Come on.
Yesterday was like 2 weeks ago. Yesterday, you were talking about how some pundits have been saying this is our fault that this is happening because we didn't vote people like Abbott out.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yeah, so I've seen on Twitter a lot of people actually just blaming Texans for this decision from Greg Abbott. But I think what we know is that there are millions of Texans who voted for somebody different. And so that's just not the best way to go about this response. Like, people are going to potentially die or get really sick because of this decision. And that's not on Texans. That's on Greg Abbott. He's the one who's making this decision. He's going against medical advice. He didn't even consult with 3 out of 4 of his medical advisors. So that's just proof that this was a political move on his part. It wasn't based in science. It wasn't a healthcare decision. And so I think that those kinds of conversations just aren't productive at all. We don't need to place the blame on the voters. We need to place the blame on the person who's actually making these decisions and the person who has the power in this situation.
Some voters, just not all voters.
Well, very
Not
good.
us.
I mean,
We didn't pick Abbott. I
definitely on the voters that made the wrong choice. But
yeah, that's an important point. There are millions of people in the state. The state is a lot more diverse than people may realize, both in terms of demographics, but also in terms of like voting and political thinking. I think that too many people think that we're all Yosemite Sam walking around with our 6-shooters out here, and that's just not the case. And I think that, give us a chance. We're getting a little closer every year, and maybe it's crazy antics from Governor Abbott like this that will finally get people to realize that conservative leadership is not the way forward in Texas. These Republicans always talk about how government doesn't work, and then they go and get elected and try and go prove it, right? Let's get away from that for a while. Let's get some grown-ups in the room.
And I think also those conversations also just completely ignore the reality of voter suppression in our state. There was an analysis that came out last year that said Texas is the hardest state in the nation to vote in. And so there are people who want to get out and vote, but in a lot of ways, there are obstacles being put in place by these Republicans who are in power. So to blame Texans for our leadership doesn't always make sense whenever people are trying to exercise their right to vote, but in a lot of instances, they're not able to. And then also ignores conversations about gerrymandering and how terrible that is here. So I think that this is just a larger conversation. And, I think that what we were mentioning about how they keep trying to one-up themselves and Cruz left to go to Cancun and now Abbott's doing this, that's because they think that they are able to get away with it because they know how bad the voter suppression is here. So that they think that, it doesn't matter. There's no way that I can get voted out of office, so I'm just going to do this anyway. And we have to show them that they're wrong and that there are consequences to their actions.
I'm sorry, I'm laughing. I just got a news alert that Abbott is focused on social media censorship. Like, that's his issue right now. Are you kidding me?
It's funny, but like in a bad way.
Yeah, right. I'm laughing at him, not with him.
Right. But if you do come to our happy hour, our live happy hours for fun and entertainment, you're going to love what comes next, which is our first Progress Texas podcast. So right now, there's something called Amplify Austin, and through that, we're trying to raise $5,000 to launch our new podcast. If you donate $10 or more through this program, we're going to send you something really special, a Progress Texas sticker pack. So in addition to the donation will be matched 100%. So if you donate today, that'll be super cool. And I'm going to drop a link in the chat.
Also, when you do donate, what you're doing is you're helping us with equipment. As you can all see, like, we're basically all wearing different types of headphones right now. I have my air traffic controller headphones on. That's because I have a mic attached to this, but I don't have a lapel mic, which the others have today. And in addition to that, we've got to pay for things like the lighting and the engineer who you can't see. All of it goes into making this something hopefully better than it would be otherwise.
There's a really important question that's been like floating around the political sphere, which is that why did Abbott choose this week to lift his mask mandate? Ed, why do you think that happened?
It's pretty easy answer, actually. It's because he had such a terrible time after the winter storm here that he needed to do something to shore up his conservative base again. So, of course, making Texas less safe was the way to do it. And that's exactly what he did. It's really not any more complicated than that.
So cynical, this guy.
Yeah, I think Diana wasn't. I mean, think about like the red meat he has thrown out this week, right? Like he had a terrible response to the winter storm. He has had a terrible response to COVID for the whole year. And then he went and tried to blame immigrants for COVID, which I know that there was like, Dana, in the border communities, like people are like, wait a minute. A lot of these people here at the border are getting screened and tested. Like, where are you coming up with this? But with Patrick, it's just more red meat for the base because he's worried he's either going to be primaried or something else.
Yeah, it's definitely a classic Republican move to distract from a lot of their own failures in leadership by blaming other populations. I mean, the really xenophobic, racist rhetoric that he's using against immigrants is so appalling and unfortunately a classic move against folks that are being screened at the border, are being, tested. And it's really, important to test folks, vaccinate all folks. And if Abbott was really concerned about COVID spreading, he wouldn't have announced, getting rid of his mask mandate and opening up businesses to 100%. That's very irresponsible. And so instead of getting folks to blame him for his failure in leadership and to distract from the news about his failed leadership with the freeze, something I won't forget. I froze for a week. I'm going to stay salty and stay civically engaged because of that. It's really appalling to see him try and blame and point fingers at other folks and hope that press will pick it up, that folks will be distracted. But, we're not going to be distracted. We're going to keep letting folks know what's going on, what he's done, and, keep having the show every week to keep y'all informed.
He even blamed windmills. Even windmills are not safe from Governor Abbott's wrath.
I think what we're seeing here is Abbott is really just taking a move out of the Trump playbook. So anytime Trump did something terrible, he would just distract with something more terrible. And it was just an ongoing, snowball effect so that we were so distracted by the next terrible thing that he did that we couldn't actually focus on the issue that was right in front of us. And so, like Diana said, just a couple of weeks ago, Texans were sitting in their homes in the dark, some freezing to death. And that's not something that we should so quickly forget, something that we need to work on and find solutions to so that it never happens again. And I think we have people in the Texas legislature, we have lawmakers who are committed to coming up with solutions, but we also know that Abbott is not committed to doing that. Otherwise, he would have worked on it before this problem even happened to begin with. And I think that he recognizes how big of a failure that was on his part. And so millions of Texans were affected, both Republicans and Democrats. And so he, like you said, Ed, he's trying to find a way to throw red meat at his conservative base because they were angry about what happened too. I mean, if you don't have electricity, you don't have power, you don't have running water, you're going to be mad about it. And that's not something that you're going to get over so quickly. And so I think Abbott knew that he had to do something big, and this was his next big thing in order to
and he may have to look over his shoulder for another Republican trying to take him out. But one of the things we talked about a couple weeks ago was what is the answer to Abbott, or better yet, who is the answer to Abbott? And I put out the piece called our way too early non-comprehensive list of 2022 candidates. And that's, of course, had Beto O'Rourke and Julian Castro on that list, but it also had about 40 other people on that list, basically saying, we'll take anybody. Anybody will do. And if you want to run, we'll vote for you because you literally can't be worse than this guy.
It would be hard. On one hand, you have Abbott, who's done absolutely nothing except for blame, distract. But Diana, you follow the Texas Ledge really closely, and they're trying to do a lot of really amazing stuff to have common sense solutions to climate change. What are they trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, thank God we have a lot of really great progressive Democrats that believe in the power of green energy, the great positive impacts that windmills can have in Texas and renewable energy. And there is a caucus focused on climate here in Texas, headed by Representative Aaron Zwiener, who is a really a great advocate for renewable energy and, bringing attention to climate change that is happening and paying attention to science. And so we have a blog that was written by one of our legislative fellows, Abby. Really great, came out this past week talking a lot about some of the bills that have been proposed that right now in the legislature that are focused on improving our situation here in Texas, on renewables, on making more of a positive impact and changing back and reversing what's happened with climate change here.
And just to give a shout out to a few of those lawmakers and a few of the bills that have been filed, if you're interested in looking them up or looking more into them, there's HB 1821, which is known as the Texas Climate Forward Plan. And that was filed by Rep. Aaron Zwiener, who Diana just mentioned heads up the Climate Caucus. And basically this bill would require that the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality create a report on the potential impact of climate change in our state. We also have HB 2206, which is the Texas Climate Action Act, and that was filed by Representative James Tallarico. And it would require the state to create a commission to commission a report on climate change. So both of these are very similar, but the report would also need to include recommendations for how we could regulate emissions throughout the state and just recommendations on how to prepare for a future crisis as well. So I think these bills are super important, and there are others like them. And that's something that we're going to be watching out for throughout this legislative session, because Texans, like we said before, this should never happen again. And we have lawmakers who don't want this to happen again. But we need to fight in order for action to actually happen, because clearly Governor Abbott is not focused on this issue. He's trying to create other problems.
One of the things you mentioned, James Tallarico. And one of my favorite tweets, I know I mentioned a tweet earlier, but like one of my favorite tweets this week was that Texas encourages people to wear masks the same way it encourages our energy grid to winterize. And thought that hit home pretty well, right?
Yeah.
Too well, too soon.
Yeah, I know, right? Like encouraging is not going to do anything. We need to encourage people to take action, starting with the legislature. So. All right. So of the candidates that may run next time, I see like a lot: Joaquin Castro, Julian Castro, Beto O'Rourke. In the Texas House, you've got Rafael Anchia, John Busey, Nicole Collier, Gina Hinojosa, Donna Howard, Trey Martinez-Fisher, Joe Moody. There are so many. And the point is that there's so many good progressives that could easily do a better job if the state were in their hands. So obviously a lot more folks on that list. It's probably too long of a list, but hey, that's what makes it fun at this point, right?
Lots of people to be excited about.
Exciting.
Yeah. All right.
So I'm going to make another ask of our audience once again, kind of like the Bernie meme, as we've talked about a couple of times. If you like this live happy hour, you're going to love our Progress Texas podcast. And right now through Amplify Austin, we're trying to raise the money to launch it officially. So what I'm asking you today, all the viewers, is to donate $10 or more. And if you do, not only will your donation be matched 100%, but we're also going to send you a Progress Texas sticker pack. So we hope you donate. We hope you enjoy this show. And we hope you subscribe to our podcast when it launches. Dropping the link in the chat right now.
And I hope you get a drink of water soon. One of the things that we put out this week, going back to masks and like the winter storms and such, was that Abbott isn't real good at kind of owning up to his faults. Like most politicians aren't. The problem is he just makes so many, and you would think that after a while the guy would just like shut up and like not try to do anything that draws attention to himself, but he just doesn't seem to be able to help himself. I don't know where I'm going with that other than that. I just think it's worth pointing out.
No, I completely agree. It's like we're part of creating this crisis that we just had. I think the best case scenario would just be for you to be quiet for a little while. And I think honestly, if he had comms people or really just political advisors that were any good at their jobs, that's probably what they would advise him to do. But for some reason, he decided, oh, now's the time to lift the mask mandate. Now's the time to reopen Texas. And it just generally makes no sense. One thing that we wrote about in a blog was that because of the winter storm, Texans weren't going out and getting tested as much. So there weren't as many cases being reported during that time. That doesn't mean that the case count dropped. It just meant that we weren't getting reports on it. And so I think that he saw that drop as his opportunity to say, oh, like the cases are going down in Texas, now is the time to lift the mask mandate. But as I'd mentioned before, on the same exact day that he lifted the mask mandate, it was basically a similar case count to the day that he enacted it as well. So even that doesn't really give a good enough rationale for him to have made this move. It really does just come down to politics and his own personal agenda.
It just boggles my mind that he would do this too. I think this first thought in the morning is, how can I make things worse? Instead of how can I make things better? First off, it's starting with vaccinations. We have one of the lowest vaccination rates in the whole country. And there are so many frontline workers, essential workers, teachers, staff that are that have to interact with people all the time. He should have started with figuring out how to get this vaccination rate up before trying to do anything like this. It's just way too soon.
Well, Diana, somebody has to stand up to the experts. And that's what the conservatives are doing. They said, hey, man, what do these experts know?
But you know what? Amidst all this negative news on COVID, there is like one bright light that happened, I think, yesterday. Johnson & Johnson's vaccine is now approved to be distributed. And unlike the Pfizer and Moderna ones, this is one shot. And the temperature and the way that it has to be stored is much less strict. So this is going to have a huge impact in Texas, which is a huge state with lots of rural areas. This vaccine will be able to get onto those places much easier than Pfizer or Moderna. And the reality is, with more vaccine options, that means more folks can get vaccinated. And if and when you're able to, let's get it done so that we can leave this COVID behind,
This has been the worst staycation ever. The longest march ever. And the best thing about the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is J&J's ability to scale, and combined with Merck, like their ability to reach across the country is so vast that it's going to allow a lot more supply and vaccination soon. So I hope if you're watching and you hadn't gotten your vaccination yet, I know I have not gotten mine yet, but if you haven't, sign up, get yours, whatever group you're in, and hopefully you can get it ASAP.
And in the meantime, continue to wear a mask, please.
Please wear a mask.
Very good point, Wesley. So most of today's episode, we've been educating our audience about how terrible Abbott is, what good news is coming in the vaccine world, how progressives are trying to fight back against climate change. But there's things that y'all can do right now because we are in the lead session. And Diana, I know you've been working a lot on redistricting. Do you want to talk about how folks can get involved with that?
Yes, definitely. So as much as we would love for folks to have the opportunity to testify virtually for so many things in the ledge session, that isn't available, but there is an opportunity to testify virtually, actually. It was originally slated to happen last week, but it's been rescheduled because of the winter storm. And we'll include a link to sign up to testify in the Senate redistricting hearings that are going on. It's not too late. You can still sign up at the link to testify. The link we put up specifically is for testifying statewide, any part of Texas that you live in. You can talk to the Senate and let them know how you feel about redistricting. Something to note as well is that unfortunately and horribly, they haven't provided any sort of translation for folks that don't speak English. So I think it kind of would send a good message to encourage folks who are non-English speakers to testify, because even though they don't have translation services, we need to make this push to make sure their voices are heard as well, whether they speak English or not.
Diana, there's a question from Facebook from Sean. What does it mean to testify?
That's a good idea. Basically, I think there are a lot of folks that are nervous about, speaking up, and they think they have to know a specific amount about, city council or state legislature. But this specifically is, this references what we were talking about earlier when folks blame Texans voters, like, well, you voted for Abbott, that's why he's making these terrible decisions. It's your fault. But one of the reasons that we are in this terrible situation is because we live in a voter suppression state where a lot of Republicans, just like, Greg Abbott and a bunch of other folks, have gerrymandered and redrawn our lines in a way to where a lot of folks who are the most marginalized don't have their voices heard. And so to sign up and at that link to have your voice heard, to talk about how you don't like having lines drawn in terrible ways where the most marginalized voices aren't heard the most, would be a way to testify, having your voice heard, speaking up, sharing your opinion. Everyone's opinion matters, especially those whose votes are being suppressed.
Well, Diana, Ed, Wesley, thank you all so much, as always, for all your amazing insights.
On that note,
you all did really well today with all the questions. I definitely want to see more questions every week from now on, because y'all set a high standard for questions today. But thank you everyone for coming to watch what we had to say today. Please, I put in the link for donating to our Amplify event. Since you love this podcast, since you love our live stream, you're definitely going to love the podcast. And if you love Progress Texas, you're going to love our sticker packs. And if you love donating, you're going to love the fact that when you donate to this, it's going to get doubled by a generous matcher. So have a great day today. Have an amazing weekend, and we will see you next week. Bye, y'all.
Bye.